2.7.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. This bulletin is live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra and also live around the world on 3news.com. Coming up this evening, management of Bolgatanga Girls Senior High School take cover in an unfolding story of sex, abuse and betrayal as civil society, the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service try to handle the situation. Tonight we ask, what are the institutional covers for victims of sexual abuse? Also in this package, yet another unexpected, unplanned for power outage with far-reaching consequences. What is the real story? We explore what happened to many of you in the early hours of today.
When we had a major incident at Kosovo, after meeting the engineers, we had two options: either to shut the plant down and build throw center in its entirety, which meant that the plant would have been off for 6 months, or put in this temporary structure or temporary mechanism and restore the power.
Power Minister has been giving some answers to many of the questions some of you have on your minds. We'll bring you details in a jiffy, and in the latter part of the show, we'll help you understand what's happening in the camp of the New Patriotic Party as we build up to their national executive elections, which will be happening in October. But they've opened nominations for the next few days. Details of all of that and more. Who will be leading the NPP into the 2028 elections? Before that, let's bring you news summaries with Nura Mohammed. Hello, Nura.
Hello, Martin. First in the news summaries, the Supreme Court has in a tricycle. Now, this crash claimed 12 lives and left 22 others injured. Meanwhile, a 3-story building at Menchia South in Kumasi, a few meters from the Menchia Palace and near the Menchia Government Hospital, has been gutted by fire. The incident occurred at about 12:30 p.m. today, Thursday, August 20, 2026, sending residents and passers-by into a state of panic as thick smoke and flames engulfed parts of the building. Also in the summaries, the Food and Drugs Authority, FDA, recorded a 70 million Ghana cedis surplus in 2025, up 51% from 46 million Ghana cedis the previous year, but has identified aging laboratory equipment and illicit products as key challenges to public health protection. Now, Deputy Director of Finance at the FDA, Samuel Adom Siao, disclosed this at the authority's 2025 annual stakeholders meeting in Accra while presenting his audited financial report. The Ghana Mine Workers Union, GMWU, of the Trades Union Congress has petitioned the Finance Minister over more than 380 million Ghana cedis in locked-up funds belonging to over 19,000 mine workers, warning that continued delays could trigger widespread industrial action across the mining sector. In a petition dated August 20, 2026, the union demanded the immediate resolution of outstanding issues involving distressed specialized deposit-taking institutions, including the Seed Funds Savings and Loans Limited and Gisla Financial Services Limited. That's it for the summaries. Back to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Nura. Let's settle for the details of the stories now, starting from the unfortunate development that happened some time back. Well, we are told that some 2 individuals, security men, have been arrested following the defilement, more or less, of a 14-year-old girl at the Bolgatanga Girls Senior High School. Now, the Ministry of Education has called for the reinstatement of the 14-year-old girl over an alleged sexual assault perpetrated by 2 watchmen of the school. Reports suggest that the girl is a special needs student who is on medication. A statement from the ministry indicates that on the day of the incident, the student reportedly suffered a relapse and required medical attention. It was during this period that the alleged incident occurred. Following the acts by the 2 men, The watchmen were arrested and handed over to the police for further investigations. In addition, management has interdicted them with immediate effect, and the ministry has vowed to investigate the disturbing incident and bring the perpetrators to book. And if for those of you who are following us on Facebook and on YouTube, you'd see the statement which the ministry released. But prior to that, we had heard from the school authorities that some action had been taken regarding that particular incident that happened to the 14-year-old girl, whom we are told is a girl with special needs and had taken some medication. And unfortunately, the two watchmen, we are told, took advantage of the lady. And what happened beyond the harassment, the sexual harassment of the lady, came under scrutiny. And following public reactions, the ministry has given indications that the girl should be reinstated in the boarding house which she was in before the incident happened. The two men, we are told, are currently in the grips of the Ghana police. Joining me in studio now is 62's Dong Ulo, who has been following the story for us. He has a copy of the statement from the Education Ministry. 62, thank you for your time. What were the key issues raised by the ministry?
Well, that statement is signed by the Deputy Minister for Education, the Honorable Dr. Clement Abaza-Pak, and it says that the ministry expresses grave concern over the sexual abuse of the 14-year-old student with autism, and they condemn it in the strongest terms. Any act of sexual abuse or exploitation of a child under our care would mean the ministry. Schools exist to protect and nurture students, and any breach of that trust, particularly by adults entrusted with safeguarding vulnerable children, is unacceptable and will not be tolerated. So the ministry says that some 3 directives have been issued. That's per this statement. And the first one is to for the Ghana Education Service to investigate the matter and report immediately. Number 2, for the Ghana Education Service to ensure that the victim receives all the necessary medical attention and counseling for her quick recovery. And number 3, for the Ghana Education Service to ensure the immediate reinstatement of the boarding status of the victim. We want to assure the student's family and the general public that the ministry will ensure justice is served in this matter. And the Ministry of Education sees the development as an act of indiscipline and reaffirms its commitment to the safety, dignity, and rights of every child in the Ghanaian school system. So again, just to reiterate, 3 directives that have been issued by the Honorable Minister for Education. And the first one is for GES to investigate the matter and report immediately. Number 2 is for GES to ensure that the victim receives all the necessary medical attention. And number 3 is the immediate reinstatement of the boarding status of the victim. That's the statement that we have dated today, August 20, and signed by the Deputy Sector Minister.
All right. Thank you very much, 62s, for bringing us details of the ministry's statement. Also, we do know that the Africa Education Watch has said it is also deeply concerned about the reports of the alleged sexual abuse of the 14-year-old girl at the Bolgatanga Girls Senior High School. They've also issued a statement, and joining us coincidentally is the Executive Director for Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare. Mr. Asare, a very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Hi, good evening to your audience.
Would you agree with those who say maybe this particular issue is isolated, looking at the circumstances? One, this is a girl that has special needs and was taken advantage of. So there are those who argue that it is isolated, but generally across our education system.
Sexual harassment policy, after 3 years of implementation, having conducted evaluation in senior high schools and some junior high schools. One of the key findings was that many schools lack the institutional capacity to implement the sexual harassment policy. Now, what we've seen play out in Bolga girls is a direct manifestation of the report. Because if you look at the case management, it has been totally poor, very shambolic. A 14-year-old is sexually abused by 2 security men. Our sources tell us that perhaps it happened more than once, and perhaps there was a first report who wasn't greeted with an appropriate response, and there was a second one. Now, if after this, the girl rather is seen as guilty of sexual misconduct by the school, including the headmistress, whose cardinal duty it is to protect the girls in their custody. If they could go through this disciplinary process and find the girl as guilty of sexual misconduct in an action, in a criminal action of adults, how can the child who has no right of consent be held liable, criminal liable, and then say that she's guilty of sexual misconduct, and then you're actually sanctioning her? That is a big sign of institutional weakness, not just in implementing sexual harassment policy, but also in implementing schools discipline policy and then safeguarding policies. And that is why we are scandalized. We are very, very disturbed that this is not a Bolga issue. It is a system-wide deficit in safeguarding, in discipline management, and also, lastly, in the implementation of the inclusive education policy by the highest authorities in our school, because they don't really understand that the policy actually supports mainstreaming children with disability instead of isolating them. That these 3 things raise systemic deficits, and that's why we are very concerned.
Right, and so what would the way forward be? Fortunately, we are told that the 2 men involved are in the grips of the police. So, like you're saying, it is not particularly about this specific issue, but then generally across the board, we need to pay particular attention to issues of sexual harassment and intimidation of especially girls when it comes to educational institutions in the country.
I think on the way forward, the headmistress's management of the issue must be the first thing that must be mitigated by an external authority. And deficits
of persons who sexually harass. Maybe the act itself may not have taken place, but the mere threat of a harassment in itself should be sanctioned. How punitive, or what should the punitive strategy be going forward to make it a deterrent act?
I think for the perpetrators, the GNES School of Conduct for its staff is clear. It's outright dismissal, and so they are gone. Once the culpability is established, they are gone. And so, so far as we are concerned, that is not much of an issue about the provisions in the code. No, the code prefers the highest sanction, which is great. And so it's normally about application and not provision. The provision is okay. It depends enough. So for the code, once culpability is established, they are gone. But then the criminal side is also of interest to us because it's a defilement case. And so subject to the determination of the courts, if they are guilty, then, there will be cases of defilement. As I continue to say, we want to see this case not just as a Bolga issue, but a system-wide issue, because we don't want to be reactive, but rather we want to be preventive and systemic in addressing issues relating to safeguarding. Our education system has huge deficits when it comes to safeguarding. At best, we have some, provisions, but when it comes to implementation, it is very weak. And so we want to always use such opportunities to remind the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service, the Ghana Senior Service, and all other institutions providing service in our education sector to prioritize safeguarding. As we discuss school discipline, it must be within the context of safeguarding those who need to be safeguarded. And most importantly, whenever criminal actions involve children and adults, especially of sexual nature, our schools must appreciate that it doesn't matter the age of the girl. Even if the girl was 17 or 18, the power dynamics in the school environment, which puts the girl under the care of that adult, within that context, there cannot be any procurement of consent. And this will require a lot of training for our school heads because it doesn't appear, but it is really the fact that many of them do not understand the legal dynamics of managing these issues. In a complex society like ours, these issues will continue to arise in our schools. And so we must ensure that our school heads, the disciplinary committees, the safeguarding focal persons in our schools are given adequate training to appreciate the law and its dynamics when it comes to implementing the school discipline policies.
Right.
And then also safeguarding requirements.
Mr. Asari, thank you so much for your time as always.
Pleasure is mine.
He's the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asari there. Staying on this subject matter, though, let's speak to Daniel Fenyi, who is the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Education Service. Mr. Fenyi, good evening. Thank you for your time.
Hello, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
We see that you have also released a statement about the issue, or this is an isolated one.
Let me thank you for the opportunity. In fact, it came to us, the news came to us as a very shocking story. Indeed, we would admit that occasionally we get incidents of a teacher-student relationship, and if you could follow the Ghana Education Service, we interdict the teachers, we suspend, we punish when we hear or see any such incident. But the extent of assaulting a learner or a student with disability or a special needs student, this is extremely shocking. And in fact, I dare say that this might even be the first time as Ghana Education Service we are recording an incident like this. That already, once the person is a student and you are a staff of the school, they are vulnerable with you because of, as Kofi Asari was saying, special needs students who even need some more attention, some more support, some more focus from the school. And now, if these students are also being assaulted, then it gets all of us worried. In fact, we were not just worried. We immediately have interdicted these two watchmen. Already, they had been arrested and handed over to the police. In fact, today, we know that they were arraigned before court. They are remanded in prison custody and until 2nd of September when their case will be recorded. It tells the intensity and the seriousness with which we are doing this. But the question that is coming up is that if our students would not feel safe in school, where else should they? If the place where they are obtaining knowledge, where their lives are being guided, where impact is made, where they are groomed and trained to turn out well in future, if that place is no longer safe and sound for them, where should they turn to? That's the more reason that we have shown this caution, this strong caution to our staff, that we don't want to record such an incident in our schools
again. Mr. Fenyi, finally and briefly, so where is the girl in question? The statement from the Ghana Education Service says she should be reinstated as a boarding student and be given all the necessary assistance. Do we know how she's recouping from the assault?
Indeed, at the moment we know she's receiving medical attention. In fact, that is generally the first approach when a student is assaulted in that manner. We also know because he is a special needs student, he was already on medication. So if somebody close to the medical people because of her condition. And at the moment, our focus is that we get all the necessary medical attention. Indeed, we are also looking at integration or reintegration into the school community. We know that when situations like this happen, a lot of trauma, a lot of mental instability And so we are taking her through all the support systems so that we reintegrate her into the school community.
Right. Mr. Fenyi, thank you so much for your time this evening.
All right, thank you for the opportunity.
And Daniel Fenyi is the PRO of the Ghana Education Service. Your thoughts are also very welcome. Do let us know. We are streaming on Facebook and on YouTube as well as on air, 3FM 92.7. We're shifting our attention to the big story that happened in the early hours of today. Many of you sent us messages. We're inundated about power outage in different parts of the country. Now, the Minister of Energy and Green Transition, the Honorable John Jinapo, has appealed to Ghanaians to exercise restraint following Thursday morning's power outage that affected parts of Accra and other parts of the country. The Ghana Grid Company Limited, Gridco, has begun restoring power following this fresh major fault on the Akosombo Volta transmission line, weeks after a major nationwide power outage which disrupted electricity supply. The latest incident occurred around 4:30 this dawn. Power plants. Let's listen to the minister who has been touching on this particular issue and the processes that have already kicked in place to resolve it.
We had a bit of some disturbance with power supply. When we had a major incident at Akosombo, after meeting the engineers, we had two options: either to shut the plant down and build the control center in its entirety, which meant that the plant would have been off for 6 months, or put in this temporal structure or temporal mechanism and restore the power, albeit knowing that it will be a bit fragile. As minister, I had a decision to make, and I decided that we should go by the temporal measure whilst we put in place a permanent solution. And so engineers working around the clock have improvised a system to supply power from Akosombo. And for some months now, it has largely helped. But because it's a temporal measure, occasionally when there is some frequency disturbance, it takes off Akosombo immediately to protect the system.
Right, so there is a longer submission that was made by the minister in charge of energy and green transition. But let's speak to Richmond Roxon, who is the spokesperson for the ministry. Richmond, thank you for your time. Good evening to you.
Thank you. Good evening. And let me say good evening to your cherished listeners as well.
Right. So can you help us understand the percentage of power restored in terms of what went out and how much of it has been able to been restored by the ECG officials or the power sector workers?
Okay, so I can confirm to you that there's been 100% restoration. At about 12:03 p.m. this afternoon, the Gridco engineers working together with the power sector stakeholders were able to restore power to all parts of the country.
Right. And the minister in that short clip we played said that some time back following the incident, the explosion that took major parts of the country out, he had to make a decision. And the decision was the temporary fix whilst a permanent one was being worked on. With the restoration, is it the permanent one that has been fixed, or we are still on the temporary one for the time being?
So we are not even on the temporary one. So when the incident happened, as my minister mentioned, a decision had to be made because you had the switchyard, which is practically the control center when it comes to evacuating power from the plant to Tema, or the National Interconnected Transmission System, burned down completely. And so the engineers have to be innovative to be able to generate and evacuate power. As we speak, that switchyard or that control center from Akosombo is non-existent. And so we've been evacuating power with it. I don't want to disclose what the engineers have done to be able to keep the light on within the period. because of the sensitivity of that. And so the next step is to put together a temporary measure to be able to get a control center. That process started about 2 months ago, and that is what the Honorable Minister mentioned, that you are going to finish. We've been told that the temporary measure will be completed at the end of September. Beyond that, we would have to put together a first-class control center at the Akosombo plant area. And that is something that government is working on. But in the meantime, we are working on the temporary measure to be able to ensure that the system becomes robust. So as we speak, that is what the minister refers to. It refers to as the temporary measure. That's the makeshift control system that is being worked on currently at Akosombo.
Right. Mr. Roxon, we thank you. We'd have to leave it here for now, but thank you for at least giving us some responses to the concerns that many consumers had. Richmond Roxon, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for the time.
And he is the Public Relations Officer, spokesperson for the Ministry of Energy and Green Transition, more or less reiterating the point that was made by the Minister in charge of the sector, John Jinapor, who says that the situation that arose earlier today, which knocked off power in a number of regions, was as a result of a temporary measure that they had put in place. And we're optimistic that now that there has been full restoration, in the coming months, they would ensure that a state-of-the-art system is put in place so that this kind of problem does not recur. Let's pick the thoughts of some technical brains on these kinds of situations. Engineer Justice Ohini Akoto is the Executive Director, Africa Sustainable Energy Center. Engineer, very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Oh, my brother, good evening to you and good evening to your cherished listeners as well.
What do you make of the, it was the explanation that was given by the Minister for Energy and Green Transition that following the major explosion at the Akosombo transmission enclave, they needed to put in a temporary measure. And unfortunately, that temporary measure snapped today, whilst a more permanent one is being worked on. So although power has been restored, we are still not out of the woods yet. What do you make of all of these explanations and what really happened?
Yeah, so I listened to what the minister said, and I also, heard what Roxanne mentioned. I think GridCo should come up a bit more clearer to us. It looks like, there's something that either we don't know or there's something that is hiding. They need to be a bit more clear. So we look at the statement that GridCo brought. They mentioned this was as a result of automatic tripping, right? Usually, the minister also mentioned that it was a result of a frequency shifting that tripped those. In power systems and electrical engineering, we understand that. We've seen those things a lot in Ghana when frequencies shift and then we have to have blackout. This stems even to the most recent one that we had, a general blackout in Ghana. I came out to mention that that should surely be a result of a frequency. But GridCo came out saying it was lightning, and which I said, I still have my reservations. I don't think it was lightning. I think it was a frequency issue. Usually what happens is that if the frequency shifted a little bit, you are going to have a total blackout. That is when you have some thermal plants going off. I don't see why lightning should, result to that. So first of all, I think there's something GridCo is not really telling us. And then regarding this issue, now the minister mentioned that this was a result of a shift of frequency, which is understandable. When the frequency happens, usually what happens is that you take some of the heavy loads to be able to stabilize it. So, this is something that happened. But the question is, we've seen a lot of frequency shifts. We've seen a lot of issues regarding this where we have to take out loads to balance the frequency. What are the lessons learned? Over the years, what have we learned from it? That we keep getting into issues where frequency happens and then we have to go into total blackout. So I called out to GridCo strong that they have to give us a roadmap Over the years, what have they learned? What are the they also have to give us the way forward. That in the future, in the next few days, if there's a frequency shift, how are we going to prevent that? And aside preventing that, how are we going to have a system that is, that we can easily restore quickly? Grid moved on to the alternate line without having a disruption to the system. We've given the ministry, we've given Gridco, we've given the power sector what to do. So, if they are able to implement some of the things we are giving, we should be good to go.
And so I'm sure, having, like you indicated, as a country, we have been here before a number of times, and the story keeps repeating itself. What, in your estimation, will be the best way forward? The minister says in the coming months, more permanent solutions will be found to the problem. Gridco is being called out consistently, but from the perspective of an analyst, how can we better resolve this, considering the fact that we want to be, an industrial country where power is the pivot of any kind of industrialization?
Okay, so what we have to do right now, interim, is that Gridco should go back to the drawing table. Let's pick out the power outages that resulted as a result of frequency. Let's analyze it and then stay with, okay, if you are going to have, we should be able to forecast. Gridco is able to, they're able to forecast the load for the day. That is how, we're able to do our matching. So we should be able to forecast and then, try to be a little more innovative when it comes to the load management. So that we should be able to anticipate a level where we are having frequencies going to be fluctuate. And then we need to know the loads to take back and have a quick rollback plan that in case this happens, these are the loads you are going to take off, and these are our rollback plan. In minutes, in seconds, we need to have a comprehensive report from Gridco on this. What is the rollback plan? What is going to be our preventative measure if it happens to how we're going to restore the system quickly? So we need to have that from Gridco. Then everybody should keep that in record. And when it comes to the Akosombo, the substation that we are talking about, surely we need to continue with what we are doing, trying to get a new substation. Just that we need to quickly keep an eye on it. So that we wouldn't have to be messing up with the frequency.
And these are capital-intensive investments. Would you not agree? And are you optimistic that we have the funds to be able to put up a state-of-the-art system in the shortest possible time?
You see, most of the time, when some of these issues happen, we run and give the blame to money. This is not a matter of state-of-the-art or what was the name issue. Let's dig into the issue, right? We had a substation that burned. Why did the substation burn? It burned because, some cables caught fire and then whatever. That is something that, first of all, should have never happened. We do not need a state of the art to prevent that issue. So this is what goes on. If you have a control center, we have something called IR scanning. You should be able to do regular IR scanning. With that one, you'll be able to see the cables that are heating up. If you are not even doing that religiously, and then the cable started heating up, you had smoke coming out, you should have a very good tripping system. We call it a short circuit coordination study. The report that the committee said that some of the transformers were not tripping. If you have a very good short circuit system, the transformers close to where the fault is should trip. That shouldn't allow the transformers after that not to trip. Even if we didn't get that right, there should have been a very good fire response system. That as soon as the issue happened, some sprinklers should have come on board to quench the fire. So we totally failed woefully. It had nothing to do with money. And that issue has to be resolved. We are going to build a state-of-the-art multi-million-dollar wars in name, and then we are still going to find ourselves into this. So there's a technical underlying issue that was not resolved. Yeah.
Thank you for your time and thoughts this evening on this subject, Engineer.
Okay, sure. You're welcome.
And that is Engineer Justice Ohinia Koto, Executive Director, Africa Sustainable Energy Center. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. We're taking a step back to our earlier story having to do with that unfortunate development at the Bolgatanga Girls Senior High School, where a 14-year-old girl was sexually assaulted by some 2 watchmen. We are told that they are currently in the grips of the police. The Deputy Minister for Education, Dr. Clement Apak, has joined us for a quick chat on the ministry that a facility or a place where our learners are expected to be able to feel safe to learn, is throwing up some of these very serious challenges.
This should give us a basis to bring a lot more awareness to the unacceptability of this type of conduct on the campuses of our secondary schools. But if the parents and the student decide that they don't want her to be back as a boarding student, we will respect their wishes. But we don't think the school should have gone on to deboardinize her against the wishes of her parents.
And that will be my final question, which is that now the headmistress of the school, like you said, many also thought that her position was not right in terms of saying the girl was to take part of the blame, especially now that it has come out that she was a child of special need. Are there any specific actions being taken against the headmistress or authorities of the school?
Well, as indicated in the statement, we have asked for a report to be transmitted to the minister urgently. Clearly, we believe that there was some level of laxity in terms of action and reporting. We shouldn't have heard about this issue in the public space, but we did hear about it in the media, which in itself is a red flag. So even when we get the report, we will assess it, and then we will decide the levels of sanctions that should go to the officers that we believe perhaps should have been a lot more up and doing. And that would include the headmistress, the district municipal director, and even the regional director of education, because we expect them to be on top of issues of this nature.
Honorable Clement Apak, thank you so much for your time.
Come on, Shafido. Thank you. You are welcome.
Right, and that is Dr. Clement Apak. He is the Deputy Minister in charge of Ghana's education, and reiterating the position they shared earlier that they expect full reinstatement of the girl to boarding house or the boarding school, and necessary security measures be put in place to prevent a recurrence of the assault on the girl. And then also the fact that the 2 watchmen who have been interdicted should go through the full rigors and face the law squarely. We'll update you as and when further and better particulars do come up as a result of this unfortunate disturbance. You're listening to 3FM 92.7. And just before we swing into the world of business, for those of you who are politically alert or politically tuned in, former General Secretary, according to Global Info Analytics survey, which was released earlier today, John Boadu leads the former Energy Minister Boakye Jaku and former NPP National Chairman Paula Foko among the voters by some 27%. In a moment, we'll run you through some of the key numbers that were captured in the Global Info Analytics report. But it goes on to talk about the fact that John Boadu, who lost miserably at their last national elections, is seeking a comeback, and this time around based on preliminary survey undertaken by Global Info 7.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Coming up tonight, SEMSI boss blames decayed infrastructure for Ghana's recurrent power outages. We'll bring you details. Thanks for your company. I am Bismarck. I'll stand now to our details. Executive Director at the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, Benjamin Nsia, has attributed the country's periodic system trips and power outages to years of decay in the electricity infrastructure. His observation follows the latest system trip that resulted in widespread power outages across parts of the country. According to him, the lack of consistent investment and maintenance of the power system over the years has left it vulnerable to frequent failures.
I think there is information asymmetry with respect to these intermittent large-scale outages caused by stripping of hydro generators and also thermal generators. I think that there's more detailed information that system planners and power system managers are not telling Ghanaians. And I think it's likely going to create mistrust between end users and then power system generators. And that is not good for the confidence that they need to be able to resolve this particular matter once and for all. I also think that we are facing this critical challenge because of the recent drawdown on the reserve margin. So there are certain times we do less than our required capacity of 18% reserve margin. So anytime there is a trip of some power generators, it causes a whole large-scale outages. Beyond that, we also think that the reason we are facing these periodic outages is also because of the years of decay of the infrastructure in the system, especially when it comes to the national transmission system.
And that was Executive Director at the Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, Benjamin Nsia, blaming decayed infrastructure for Ghana's recurrent power outages. Now, according to former First Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afari, Ghana's 2022 debt crisis was not a sudden accident, but the predictable result of years of accumulating fiscal and economic vulnerabilities. In a paper titled How Not to Miss a Crisis, Lessons from Ghana, Dr. Opoku-Afari says the warning signs were visible long before the crisis erupted. The following 3 Business News Desk report has the details.
Former First Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Maxwell Opoku-Afari, says Ghana's 2022 debt crisis was not a sudden accident, but the result of years of accumulating economic vulnerabilities. Dr. Opoku-Afari says external shocks accelerated the crisis, but its main drivers were domestic, including weak revenue mobilization, election-related spending, rising debt services cost. He also highlighted that Ghana's reliance on domestic borrowing also amplified the risk by crowding out privacy credit and strengthening the link between government debt and banks. Former First Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana says weakness in fiscal rules, debt reporting and oversight also contributed to the crisis. He is further calling for policymakers to look beyond headline debt figures and focus on liquidity risk, public sector liability, and the links between government debt and the financial sector.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report, bringing us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition.
New stadiums will be built in the next few years to support Ghana football and other sports. Now, the second thing is about the Ghana Premier League. Last season, each team earned 1 million Ghana cedis before the start of the season, and GFA President Kurto Kreku before the start of the season, and GFA President Kurto Kreku revealed that they're going to earn again 1 million Ghana cedis each before the 1 million Ghana cedis each before the start of the new season. Now, the third point is about the increase in prize money when it comes to the winners of the Ghana Premier League. Kurto Kreku mentioned that Premier League. Kurto Kreku mentioned that money has increased from the 2 million. That money has increased from the 2 million from last season to 3 million Ghana from last season to 3 million Ghana cedis. So the winner of the 2026-27 Premier League season will earn a 6-27 Premier League season will earn a 3 million Ghana cedis. The fourth bit, 3 million Ghana cedis. The fourth bit is about sponsorship in regards to other leagues in Ghana football. Now, in the Women's Premier League, they have Goldfields Ghana as their headline sponsor for the next 2 years, and then also they would have KFC as their meal sponsor, whilst the Division 1 League would have UMB as their headline sponsor for the next 3 seasons. So a very big one for the Division 1 League and the Women's Premier League. And the last one relates to Benjamin Asare. Now, he is going to receive a brand new car from a JAC Motors, which is worth $38,000. And that's because he has been adjudged the best domestic-based player to feature for the Black Stars in the past year. And so a very good one for Benjamin Asare as well. And remember that the Ghana Premier League season, the new season will start in early September, and other competitions will start in the following weeks. And we'll see how the competitions do build up in the next few weeks, months, and into 2027.
So that was a comprehensive report by my colleague Billy Shen from the 32nd edition of the Ordinary Congress, which is held earlier today. Still on the 32nd Annual Congress, Minister for Sports and Recreation, Honorable Kofi Adams, has urged stakeholders and handlers of Ghana football to pay a critical level.
Ghana football, therefore, needs to rebuild its foundation through a clear pathway of participation, identification, development, progression, elite transition, and professionalism.